Alright, this objective is about measuring segments. So first we want to define some terms here. When we talk about distance, we're talking about basically what amounts to the distance from one point to another. So we define that as the absolute value of the difference of the coordinates, which you also call it the length. Now, back in Algebra 1, you learned that absolute value was we were always going to take the positive value. So if I've got points R at -2 and S at 3, then the distance from R to S would be the absolute value of -2 minus 3, which is the absolute value of -5, which is just 5. Now I could also take this as 3 minus a -2, and that would also give me 5. So that's one of the reasons why we say the order of the letters doesn't matter, because again we're talking about we can go either way and it will work out. Now from a notation standpoint, we write this as just RS with nothing above it. That tells me I'm talking about distance. So distance is always positive. So if you come up with a negative number, you did something wrong somewhere. I also want to make sure you notice here the notation. As I said earlier, notation is very, very important because we have a lot of information presented in a small number of letters. So it's very important that everybody understand what everybody's talking about. So if I have two letters with a double-headed line above it, I'm talking about the line from A to B. If I have AB with a bar above it, I'm talking about the segment AB. And if I just have the letters AB, then I'm talking about the length AB, or the distance from A to B. And so it's very important that as you're writing out answers or you're writing out information, that you're actually telling me what you think you are intending to tell me. Because again, I will be fussy about this. One of the reasons is because line AB and line segment AB are, in a sense, objects. They are things. Whereas length AB is a number. And so how we handle it depends on what thing we're talking about. Now let's say that I've got two line segments. Line segment XY and line segment AB, which is on line T. Congruent segments are segments that have the same length. So if the distance from X to Y is the same as the distance AB, then line segment XY is congruent to line segment AB. Congruent basically means same size, same shape, and since lines don't have shape, we're just talking about size here. The way that we mark line segments as being congruent is we use what are called tick marks, which are just little lines that we can match up to say, okay, these line segments are congruent. If I were to have another pair of line segments, I would use, like 2 tick marks. Another one would use 3 tick marks. You're always going to be just matching up however many tick marks you have on a line segment with other line segments that have the same number of tick marks. Now the word between actually means the same thing in geometry that it means in English. It means that it is on the way from one thing to another. You can kind of pretty much be able to visualize, okay, this point is between these two other points. Now we do have kind of a formal definition because we have to make sure we have everything precisely nailed down. So point B is between 2 points A and C if all 3 points are collinear. Remember, collinear means they're on the same line. And length, basically the distance AB plus the distance BC is equal to the distance AC. Or the part plus the part is equal to the whole. Now another name for this is also called the segment addition postulate. Bisect. I'm not sure how much word roots y'all have had at this point, but essentially the prefix bi means two, and sect means to cut. So bisect means to cut into 2 pieces. And specifically in geometry, we were talking about 2 congruent pieces. So if I've got a line segment FI, and if I have point B that bisects that line segment, that means that FB is equal to BI. And then midpoint is defined as the point that bisects the segment. It's the point that's in the middle. So in the example above, point B is the midpoint of line segment FI. So some examples here. We've got O is the midpoint of line segment DG, and DO is equal to 16, and I want to find DG. Well, it's kind of fairly obvious, but we know that because O is a midpoint, that means that DO is equal to OG, which means that DO plus OG is equal to DG, and so 16 plus 16 is equal to 32, and so that's going to be my answer. Point K is the midpoint of line segment SY, and SY is equal to 24, and I want to find SK. Well, K is a midpoint, which means that SK is going to be half of the length of SY, so 1/2 of 24 is going to be 12. And finally, we're going to throw some algebra in here. I've got E is the midpoint of line segment SA, and SE is equal to 2x plus 7, EA is equal to 5x minus 2, and I want to find SA. Well, we're told E is the midpoint of SA, which means that SE is equal to EA. All right, so I'm going to substitute in what the expressions are for the distances. So 2x plus 7 is equal to 5x minus 2. Moving terms around, I end up with x is equal to 3. Now, some of you might be tempted to stop here, but go back and look at what my original question was. The questions asked me to find SA. So now that I know that x is equal to 3, I can plug it back in, and because I know from my segment addition postulate, I know that SA is equal to SE plus EA, which means that I plug in my x and I get 2 times 3 plus 7 plus 5 times 3 minus 2, and I end up with 26 as an answer. Okay, so at this point, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to, once you finish with these notes, is go back to your Objective 1 notes, and again, make any kind of additional comments that you think you need to make after what we did in class last time, especially those of y'all who are in Avid. Make sure you have your essential questions. And I would also like you to go ahead on the page where you've hopefully by now glued in your foldable, go ahead and write what your summary is. Okay? Write what your summary is of whatever we've seen. Again, remember, based on what we learned about Cornell Notes, your summary should essentially answer whatever your essential questions are. So go ahead and do that for me, as well as doing these notes, and that's what I'm going to be checking on when we get to class next time. Good night.